So two things are happening. Within the UDA, or the Kenya Kwanza coalition, or let me just talk within the UDA party, there's tug of war that has drawn in the president. Looks as if Ndini Nyoro and the Rigathi Gachagua supremacy battle has got the president talking, and is telling all those who are talking about that to stop. That is a bit too early to get into those conversations, and that it's time to deliver to the people of Kenya now. That's exactly what you should be talking about. So you move away from the UDA or the Kenya Kwanza coalition to the Azimio coalition, and one man is also in it, Junet. Raila Odinga has jumped in to defend them, because if you look at how the 2022 August elections ended, there was a man who was blamed for the shambolic manner in a way that the Azimio coalition handled their battle. Junet, isn't it? And Raila Odinga has jumped in to stop those who are speaking against his old ally, that is Junet. Talk about that this morning. The dailies are quite interesting. Stories about what's going on in the corridors of justice. Now the conversation has shifted from the meeting that we witnessed at State House and the political correctness of that statement to what the judiciary now, and specifically Martha Koome, is telling Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasser yesterday. They walked out of a $2 billion case battle, saying that it couldn't continue until Ahmed Nasser, walked out of that hearing, advising all the litigants in that particular case to look for different representation, or else they will not listen to any case. We talk about that this week as well. Just so much that we're going to get into. We're going to look at exactly where we are in our AFCON standings, who's out, who's in, who's proceeding. And for Manchester United fans, either happy or sad, Cameroon is going to the last 16. It's a lot of conversations then that we're going to have this morning. For now, let's take a tiny breath, and once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to whatever it is that you're waking up to. The newspapers. My name is Simba Elijah Charles King. This is the Morning Drift. The hashtag is the Morning Drift. Welcome back. Let's begin with Daily Nation. Big headline here. Secrets of Ruto Mudavadi deal. They're going to read about that more than a year to the 2022 general election. Salia Mudavadi was a leading light of the One Kenya alliance that included Kalonzo Musyoka and Gideon Moi. Unbeknown to his allies, including Raila Odinga of the opposition Azimio, he was already secretly eyeing a deal with William Ruto. On April 6, 2021, he quietly reserved the name Kenya Kwanza Alliance, the outfit that is today the governing coalition, covered on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Another big story here has now burnt 2 trillion 4 years in advance. If we look at the Consolidated Fund Service Expenditure Payments for Public Debt, Pension and Salaries of Constitutional Office Holders, they've exceeded 2 trillion shillings mark, a situation that was not expected until 2026-2027 financial year. That story covered on the back page. The Supreme ex-casualties of Ahmed Nasser court ban. That story covered on page 10. And World Bank giving Kisumu a 1.4 billion shillings facelift. Story covered on page 14. And there's a petition on why churches now should pay taxes on tithe. Story covered on page 3. On parenting, why we choose to hire day bugs instead of live-in nannies. And there's a story here on on stopping the supremacy battles, Ruto tells Gachagua and Nyoro. That story covered on page 6 of the Daily Nation. That's exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning on the Daily Nation. Let's jump on to the Standard. The UNET question, Raila jumps to defend ally. Read that story on page 9. And fuel prices on how the new bid appeal for the business for the IMF. Read that story on page 17. And Israel's Gaza war threat to Middle East, story covered on page 20. AFCON night of drama as giants clash, story on pages 31 and 32. Now Ruto's warning shot to restless Mount Kenya leaders, story covered on page 6. Now President Ruto has been sucked into the raging squabbles among his lieutenants in central Kenya, warning restless youthful leaders led by Member Parliament Ndidi Nyoro, who are seeking to upstage Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in Mount Kenya supremacy battles. Story covered on page 6. The story here, there's a quote here by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying, Deputy President Rigathi saying, Gachagua and I agreed to provide mentorship to the youthful leaders, but they should not push us to the corner. That will alter the plan. William Ruto, quote right there. Supremacy Court makes good ban order on a lawyer Ahmed Nasser. That story covered on page 5. Now the Apex Court declined to accord senior counsel Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi audience when he made efforts to appear before it over a 2 billion shillings land case. That story covered on page 5. All 17 Isongo school teachers return. Now teacher service rescinds decision to transfer the tutors after meeting stakeholders of troubled secondary school at its Nairobi offices yesterday. Also this story, by the way, covered heavily on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke this morning. Well, take a tiny breather. We come back with the news this morning. Welcome back. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has apprehended 2 officials from Nairobi County over allegations of redirecting county revenue. The 2 reportedly manipulated the Nairobi Revenue Services portal to falsely show full payment of fee, as Ian Ketani now reports.
A Nairobi County staff working at St. Peter's Clavers Revenue Offices in Starehe Sub-County has been arrested together with John Mburu Gachagua, an intern attached to the same office, for engaging in fraud.
The commission effected an arrest of 2 officials of the Nairobi County government, and this is in relation to fraud. They attempted to divert revenue through manipulation of the Nairobi Revenue Service.
Daniel Odido Ganje is said to have worked in cahoots with John Mburu, a Mount Kenya University student, to con a citizen who had gone to the offices to pay the annual parking fees for his commercial vehicles amounting to 45,000 shillings. The commission says that the duo advised the complainant to deposit the money to a private account belonging to Daniel Odido, and in exchange to be allowed to pay a lesser amount, with such instances termed as the reason behind county governments failing to meet revenue targets.
These 2 individuals told him that it was possible for them to work on the system, for the system to reflect that the payment has been made, even without any coin deposited. Based on the reports that we have processed so far, diversion of revenue is emerging as one of the main ways through which public funds are looted. It is because of things of this nature that many county governments are not able to meet their revenue targets.
As the 2 await arraignment, county governments have been urged to ensure employees who man revenue portals are people of integrity in a bid to avert county resources being misappropriated.
There is need to ensure that even the individuals that are tasked with the management of those revenue management systems are men and women of integrity. Without accountability measures, people would still continue to use the automated systems to divert revenue. And what happened yesterday is an indication of the bigger problem in several other county governments.
Moving on, Mumia's East Member of Parliament, Peter Salia, was on the hot seat yesterday at the EACC offices in Nairobi as he responded to assault allegations and his public conduct. As Mevin Getembe now reports, Salia has downplayed the summon, saying that the role of keeping members of Parliament in check is mandated to the appointing authority, who are in this case his constituents.
It's before the court. We respect the authority of the court, and we are not going to comment about the matter until the completion of this process. Thank you.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission today summoned Mumia's East Member of Parliament Peter Salia over assault of Malahi Songo MCA Peter Walunya during a funeral service 2 weeks ago.
The commission summoned this honorable member in relation to allegations that were received here that the MP engaged in conduct that is inimical to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, that prescribed the standards of conduct and behavior that is expected of state officials.
EACC spokesperson Eric Ngumbi, addressing the press, revealed that Salia was grilled over allegations of engaging in unlawful conduct that breach Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which guides the conduct of state officials.
He is currently before investigators to give his side of the story, and based on the outcome of the probe, then the commission will determine if there was indeed a violation of the law. The conduct of state officials is governed by the law, and therefore it is incumbent upon all the state officials to conduct themselves, whether in public life or in their private life.
Speaking after his appearance before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission offices at Integrity Center for grilling, the lawmaker stated that the role of keeping MPs in check is mandated to the appointing authority, who is in this case are his constituents.
Kama mwanasiasa nasema ya kwamba hii mambo ya vitengo ya EACC lazima zitumike on equal basis. Usione ya kwamba ule mwingine anaitwa na ule mwingine. I'm the only member of parliament ama kiongozi wa kwanza atikuletwa mbele ya EACC na maneno ati ya assault, allegation ya assault. Na maneno ya assault na conduct na mambo ya ethics, hiyo ni maneno ya appointing authority. Na appointing authority ya maneno ya kuangalia menendo ya mbunge ni mwananchi ndio yako na nguvu ya hiyo maneno.
The controversial lawmaker now says he will not allow any institution in the country to intimidate him, saying he still stands ready to be summoned further by EACC.
We will not accept any institution to intimidate other hard-working young people like Peter Salia. There are many things that have been going. I will not comment on that, but we will say that the law should be all equal to everybody.
Mevin Getembe, Lookuptv.
President William Ruto has asked leaders in the Mount Kenya region to shun away from talking about succession politics. Speaking on Tuesday in Gilgil, Nakuru, the president said leaders should focus on developing the country in their various roles. Ruto said it is an insult for Kenyans for leaders to debate 2027 succession politics.
Tunataka kusema katika hii region yetu ya Mount Kenya, we don't want anybody kujaribu kugawanya watu wetu along county lines. Hata hii ni watu ya Murang'a, hii ni watu ya Nyeri, hii ni watu ya Kiambu. That is retrogressive politics which we don't want in this area.
Mimi nataka niwaulize jameni, all leaders, I want to ask all leaders, it will be an insult to the people of Kenya that instead of concentrating on delivering on the assignment given to us by the people of Kenya, we have a very well cut out assignment on matters transformation of Kenya, how to create jobs, how to expand our food production, how to ensure that every citizen has access to universal health. Let me ask all leaders that we focus our attention on the delivery of the assignment that was given to us by the people of Kenya, especially leaders in Kenya Kwanza, leaders in UDA. I want to ask them to step down any contestations for whatever positions, present or future, so that we can work together, focus on delivering to the people of Kenya, ensure that we keep our promise to the people of Kenya.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga has moved to dispel rumors that cracks have emerged within the Azimio coalition due to leadership wrangles. Odinga, who attended an ODM party's delegate meeting in Tana River, has made it clear that all leaders of constituent parties under the Azimio coalition umbrella are working together in harmony, insisting the allegations of divisions are just pure speculations. As a reporter who returned and now filed, the former premier says Junet Mohammed, who has been rumored to be to chart a different political journey, is still active and an ardent supporter of the ODM party.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga made a grand entry in Tana River. Odinga making his way here for an ODM party's delegate meeting with the party in the bid to bolster its membership drive at grassroots level. Today's meeting coming on the heel of apparent disquiet and leadership wrangles within the Azimio coalition. The former Prime Minister has, however, dispelled allegations of the emergence of cracks in Azimio. He has labeled such allegations baseless rumors that are politically instigated.
Tuna kiongozi katika hii muungano ya Azimio. Yale yote ambayo magazeti wanaandika ni porojo tupu. Kwa mfano maana wanasema ati Azimio inaenda kusambaratika. Ati Azimio wengine wanaanza mambo si ya vyama vyao, wengine wanaanza kujaribu, kuna utata juu ya kuteua nani ambaye atashika bendera ya ODM na kadhalika. Hayo yote ni wao wenyewe ndio wanataka hayo kuwe na shida katika Azimio. Azimio vile ninavyojua ni muungano, ni mseto ya vyama.
Odinga has also addressed allegations that Suna East lawmaker Junet Mohammed is contemplating exiting the ODM party. Raila says such allegations are misguided as Junet is firmly in the Orange Democratic Party and he is actively engaged in planning and organizing the party's elections and membership drive.
Mena Hiribai sasa amerudi tena. Analia rafiki yake Junet Mohammed. Junet hajaenda mahali. Junet haendi mahali. Imekuwa porojo mingi ya magazeti.
Even as Odinga terms allegations of unease within the Azimio coalition and inside the ODM house as pure rumors, Martha Karua and Junet Mohammed's conspicuous silence and absence in major functions is raising eyebrows.
Kila nyumba pale watu naishi, bwana na bibi, kila mara kwa sangine naweza kuwa na tofauti ya maoni. Sio? Bibi ndaona leo unaenda shida mingi hapa, sio? Wewe bwana wewe tunajua mambo yako, kila mara kwa mara unatoroka hapa na kwenda kutafuta wanawake nje, una ulevi na kadhalika. Hiyo ni mambo ya kawaida. Hakuna shida. Junet hajaenda mahali, hakuna mtu ambaye ameguza Junet. Junet ndiyo director of campaign ya chama cha ODM.
Learning from the last elections, the ODM party has hit the ground running to reorganize and strengthen at grassroots level ahead of the general elections in 2027. This to avoid a repeat of 2022, where President Ruto raided his strongholds, denying him the top coveted seat in the country. Henry Tendanyula, Lookuptv.
The National Parliamentary Committee on Housing continued with the public hearings on the 2023 housing bill in Nairobi County. Stanley Lugaria was in attendance and compiled the following story.
As the court is expected to issue a ruling on the affordable housing bill that could see those in the employment sector contribute 1.5% of their salary, on Tuesday, A public hearing in Nairobi County witnessed a significant turnout of Kenyans who gave their opinions.
Baada ya another 50 years, labda itakuwa 50 million people. Lazima watakaa na nyumba za maana. Sasa sisi tutoe hiyo ndoto ya kujua tutamaliza informal settlements. Kila mtu atakaa kwa nyumba ya mawe.
Maoni ambayo umeyasikia ni ya ukweli. Ni mtu ambaye anajua mahali kiatu kinauma. Wanasema kwamba kondoo mwenye manyoya mepesi ndio anahisi baridi kweli.
The public now wants Parliament to enact into law so as to ensure that residents of the slum areas where the houses will be built are allocated the facilities as primary beneficiaries.
Sheria ikuwe ni sheria yenu, si sheria ya wadosi ama sheria ambayo inakandamiza wananchi. Na mimi nataka muentrust committee na hiyo nafasi ya kuangalia vile hii sheria ya housing itaweza kuwa sheria ya wanakanairo, sheria ya wananchi wote wa Kenya.
Among debatable issues arising was coming into terms of how much every single cube will cost, only to realize it is much costly than what is proclaimed. During the hearing, it was realized that houses with 60 square meters are estimated to cost up to 25,000 shillings, including a monthly service charge of at least 3,000 shillings.
Na hao wabunge wote waliniunga mkono vile nilisema ile amendment nilileta kwa bunge ya kusema hii pesa yote tunakusanya isiende mahali pengine, iende tu kwa housing.
The participants of today's session are now calling on the government to abolish the penalty set for the members who fail to pay monthly contributions on time.
This tax or this housing levy is not a Robin Hood tax. We are not here to unclothe Peter so as to clothe Paul.
Previously, the courts during a ruling to suspend the levy had faulted the Housing Committee for not conducting public hearings across the country. However, the situation has since changed after the court suspended its decision, giving room for the lawmakers to now rectify the mistakes and make changes so as the Affordable Housing Bill 2023 sees the light of the day.
Kuna yule engineer wa MSME alisema mko na 79 items, lakini kwa ujenzi ni 5 tu zinatumika. Tafadhali tupatie list ya the 79 items. Tukimaliza kuzunguka huku, tutaingia kwa hizi mijengo. Ili tukue na list yenu tuulize, mbona koji hazijatoka juakani? Mbona knobs za milango hazijatoka kwa watu wetu? Kwa hivyo ni vizuri tupatie hiyo list na pia mjue kama kamati tunapanga. Tukifika kwa hizo mijengo, tutaita developer, tuite suppliers, tuite watu wa hardware, tuite artisans, tuketi pamoja tuulizane hao watu wa hii area wanasaidika aje na hii mjengo yao.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv.
President William Ruto has defended Monday's meeting with the Chief Justice Martha Koome and National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, saying it was necessary in the fight against corruption. Speaking at the Gilgil Technical and Vocational College in Nakuru, the head of state pointed out that the three arms agreed that vested interests, corruption and competence are derailing national development.
Yesterday, we convened a whole of government summit between the judiciary, the legislature and the executive, so that together we can deal decisively, firmly and in an organized manner with the challenge of corruption, the challenge of incompetence and the challenge of vested interests that is undermining the development of our country, that is sabotaging the transformation of Kenya, and that is denying young people in Kenya an opportunity to have a job, that is denying many citizens an opportunity to get treatment, that is denying many citizens their rights as provided for in Section 43 of the Constitution of Kenya, economic and social rights. And I want to promise the country that together, united, we are determined this time round we must root out the corruption menace in the Republic of Kenya. We are going to deploy every resource. We are going to mobilize every Kenyan to make sure that we deal with corruption, we eliminate what is taking our country backwards, and the incompetence and the vested interests that are sabotaging.
Residents of Njogu, that is, let me take it again. Residents of Njogoini village in Laikipia have raised concern over increased cases of cattle theft in the region after more than 30 cows were stolen in the last 2 months. They have accused the police of laxity, adding that the anti-stock theft police camp in the area is ineffective as police officers in the camp are unarmed.
The residents of Njogoini, Laikipia County here are on edge over the ongoing bandit attacks that have left them counting huge losses.
Ng'ombe tariki 10 usiku wakati ya kukucha nikakuta ng'ombe yangu imeibiwa. Sasa kijana wangu ndiye alikuja akanieleza, mama, ng'ombe hakuna. Sasa tukaanza hapo, nikaita mzee wa kijiji, alafu tukatafuta gari, tukaenda na gari baka na nyuki, tukaenda baka Mwireli, baka Karioga, tukachida tukitafuta na tukasaidiwa na wasikari.
In the last 2 months, at least 30 cows have been stolen, largely denting the livelihood of the locals. The residents now are complaining that police officers are neglecting their duties, further stating that the officers on patrol do not have enough weapons to face the bandits.
Sasa ndio tunachidwa na security ile tuko naye, tuna security. Kwa ile pale kwa polisi, askari ni wawili. Tumechaa sema mara mingi tuletewa askari wa kutosha ndio wizi iiche, lakini sasa tunaona hakuna mtu anakuja kutusaidia. Kwa hivyo ile kitu ninasema kwangu mimi, hata nikiwa mmoja wa security, kuko na kawizi inaendelea hapa, na hiyo kawizi tujui inaenda namna gani. Kwa hivyo ile kitu tunaweza sema serikali iangalie sisi ndio tuonekane mali yetu itaenda, kwa sababu huyu mama ng'ombe yake sasa ile ilienda, hiyo ndio tegemeo yake. Ndio alikuwa anapata vitu yote akitaka anataka kwa ng'ombe, kwa sababu ile kama si anauza ndio inamsaidia. Sasa ng'ombe imeenda, ilibebo baka jao, hata hakuna kitu amewachiwa. Kwa hivyo sasa amekuwa maskini ya mwisho kuchida.
Residents are now calling on authorities to speed up investigations and bring the perpetrators to book. Reporting for Lookuptv, I'm Shamila Baraza.
What is the definition of the word femicide? Look at the English dictionary. Femicide is essentially defined as the killing of a woman or girl, in particular by a man on account of her gender. In fact, if you want to use it in a sentence and you say, we are concerned with the high level of femicide in our country. That particular example there of how you can use that particular definition of the word femicide in a sentence is essentially our discussion this morning. We're asking the question, are we looking at femicide in a country going by the many cases that we've seen of girls and young women getting killed? Or are we going to get into another definition that when you cover a couple of stories, we as the media, a couple of stories here and there, and we really focus on it, then those particular stories become more visible. Once we come back, I'll be introducing the guests who are joining us shortly for that particular conversation. You can actually start getting involved at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Akin Gasimba. I'll see you shortly.
Once again, tuko hapa Angel Center for Abandoned Kids, all because of you.
My name is Catherine Wanjiru. I am the admin, Angel Center for Abandoned Children. Our founder is Wamaitha Mwangi. We currently have 64 children, 32 going to school, and among those 32, 2 are special children, and we are left at the home with 32. Now the toddlers and the infants. To the Loto Foundation, thank you so much for remembering us. Guys, we lack words. We lack words. Amazing. We don't know what to say. Thank you for remembering us. You made a promise and you have delivered. And may God bless you. To my fellow Kenyans, As usual, cheza loto, sio ndoto. Angel Center tumeshinda loto.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1,000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hatia Supermarket. Mwana tata kitoko. Wewe na umeshinda nini? Yote. Sasa nalala. Karibu ndani ya Hatia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Watu wanasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, instant prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's, Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvet, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Arenco, Fruit Juice, Masterchef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Prestol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hatia Supermarket, a world of choice.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na Manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na Njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Let's go back to that definition of the word femicide. And if you've been in Kenya over the past couple days, then you might have run into this particular word. And I'll define it for the sake of our conversation this morning. Before then, I go into the introduction of our guests that are joining us this morning. British definition of femicide. This is what they say: the killing of a woman or girl, in particular, by a man and on account of her gender. You want to use it in an example. You say, we are very concerned with the high level of femicide in our country. In fact, this definition essentially will come even from the 1900s. But if you look at that particular example, then it is a tell and tell of what is exactly going on in the country, that everybody is concerned about the cases that have been highlighted in the media of women who are losing their lives. We'll leave it there. But then we go into another definition as well. Somebody gave us an example yesterday that, you see, if the media decides then to focus on any other story that they think would grab national headlines, then those stories will be more visible. Case in point, from the beginning of this year to where we are right now, you can count 5 women who've lost their lives, and those particular stories have made it to the media. Another question then would be, are we now seeing these stories because we, the media, have decided then to give them prevalence? We are online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. Let me introduce the guests who are joining us this morning. We do have Melissa Njunge, who is a counseling psychologist and a gender-based violence activist. Melissa, how are you doing? Happy to have you around. We are also joined by Rosemary Kenodia, who is the director, African Boy Child Network. Rosemary, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Happy to have you around. Let's then best that conversation as we're waiting for Colin Solorch, who is an advocate at the High Court of Kenya, to also walk into the studio so that we could look at the legal perspective of what the law really says about these particular cases that we are talking about this morning. Melissa, I'd like to begin with you. I mean, the definition of femicide is quite clear. It is killing of a female specifically because they are females. And there is this bigger concern that the cases that we've seen, by the way, from late last year, if you go back to 2023, April, up to now, the cases that have made it to the media, there's the feeling of that they've lost their lives specifically because they're women. Is that what it is? And I want to look at a couple of stories here, so give it a proper background so that we get a proper definition. The case of Rita Waini, which is has brought into the fore another discussion that we have to look at. Nigerians are involved in it, and investigations of the major suspects in this particular case have been found to be in Kenya illegally. As I wait for your microphone to get fixed, Rosemary, let me begin with you this morning. Is it a case of femicide, or there's a bigger conversation that we do have around these particular cases?
I think there's a bigger conversation behind it. What we are seeing is an output. And there's something that you mentioned when you're introducing, you talked about, is it that the media is focused on this for one reason or another? Mm-hmm. I can put it across and say, do we know as a society, we know about femicide. When women kill men, do you know what it's called? Majority of people don't even know. They don't even know there is a word to it. Do women kill men? Yes. Has it ever been hyped by the media? No. I go back to your question in terms of, is there a deeper conversation to this? Mm. is happening. But there is a lot that is happening behind the scene, but media has picked this up, ran with it. It's bringing attention to the media houses, but nobody is going deeper into finding out why is this happening. What is the response of men out there in reference to what is happening? And I think that is where we need to kind of refocus.
Yes.
Why are we having 5 victims, like you mentioned, since the year started? What was there last year, or last year but one? How many men have also lost their lives and they feel they are not getting the attention they deserve, and you guys are hyping this one for women? Is there a certain level of anger? Are we sending a signal to others, like if they don't care about our death, why should we care about this? Is it going to stop? The answer might be no. So I think there is a deeper conversation.
Pretty much, and I'll be coming back to you on that, because we've read different responses since we started highlighting this case, these cases in the media. Melissa, let me cross to you now. Same question that I put across Rosemary. Is it a case of femicide, or there's a deeper conversation? On the face of it, it looks like it. I mean, it's men that have killed these women, and there's even evidence that has nabbed majority of these men. Does it stop there, or there's a deeper conversation that we need to have?
I'd first like to pass my condolences to the families who've lost their daughters, their sisters, and thank you for that question. I feel, as from a psychological point of view, there is something more deeper as to why this is happening. It's not just because she was a woman, that's why she was killed. There are other things that are under it, and it's our role to know why is it happening. Why is it that it's just women that are being killed, and that's the only thing that's being done by the media, like they're the ones talking about it, as my colleague is saying. We need to look at it from both sides. There's the women being killed, there's the men being killed, but the perpetrators are also men and women. So we have to, I'm glad that right now we are talking about it more, because we usually see it in different ways. We see it as, in the cases that have happened recently in the past few weeks, we see that it is not an intimate partner relationship that was happening between the survivors and the perpetrators.
Yes.
So you find that it's being talked about now because the why. Why would someone who you have just met, like let's say 2 days ago, you go with him, there's those questions, there's the why would it reach there? And I feel like it's not just, it's something that we need to talk about, but we have to look deeper as to why it is happening. Yeah.
Rosemary, then let's start breaking it down. There's an event that happened immediately after we got the news of Scarlett Wahoo, and then we also got the news of Rita Wine. And when I was prepping for this interview yesterday, I kept on going back and forth over whether it's possible for me to table this conversation. And somebody said, you got to be bold and ask these particular questions then. I mean, if you're going to have that conversation, then have it. There's a protest that happened in the country last week, towards the beginning of last week, where sex workers in the country down their tools to protest about the insecurity that they've read among their peers. They're saying, well, if you look at exactly what's happening in this country, then we are under threat. Then I said, is that what we need to look at now, if indeed we're going to get down to this particular conversation? Then I came back to this country, then I learned that prostitution, on the basis of prostitution, is illegal in this country. Like, you can get arrested for being a prostitute, basically on that. We have no offering for that. Then I said, is that the reason now then why this particular women who meet this man for various reasons, you won't even know why they're meeting them, are getting exposed to danger? Because when you look at this country, should you find yourself in that business in any other way, but there's no formal protection that you're given because it's not considered a business, so there's no legal framework at all, Rosemary, to protect you. Before you answer that, the reason as to why I found it very hard for me to have this particular conversation is because even when you talk about Rita Waini, that particular story, she was just a 20-year-old. 20 years old. And then when you read at the particulars of that story, then you find that, well, there are questions that you got to answer deeply before you get to the root cause of it. And that's what I said. Is it femicide? Or we need to talk about new age prostitution, where, Rosemary, I just need to be online. And by being online, I'm going to find myself in a place with a stranger tomorrow. Next week, in any minute from now, I'll find myself with a stranger. And there's no form of protection that I'm accorded. Is that what it is then?
I would want to go back to your first statements in terms of prostitution. One is that there are jobs in this country that are risky by nature. It doesn't matter whether they are illegal or legal. One of those jobs is being a police officer. You can die. And you're aware that once you enroll to be a military person, you might be sent to Somalia. Chances of you dying is very high. You are aware of that. There are also, apart from that, media. At times you get media covering political rallies that become violent. We've seen media people being attacked. Is the job risky? Yes, it is. Are you aware it is? Yes, you are. Prostitution is another job because some people earn their livelihood through prostitution. It's not legal. But the people who get involved in it, do they know that it's risky? Yes. You get that statement? Therefore, that means that when you get into any sector or any industry perceived to be risky, you need also to know how to protect yourself from it. When you come across danger, it will not be fair to come back to society and say, we need protection. As much as there are ways that you're actually being trained to be protective of yourself, but at least you are aware it is a risky job. That is given, and that's a fact. We can't run away from that. I'll give you an example that was on social media the other day on the same issue of prostitution, where a lady, you know, there's what you mentioned about online, you call someone. So she would call a man, and you go to give you all these apps. You can easily dial a number and like kuja kwangu. It's easy. It's very easy. So, and I don't know whether to call it improved prostitution or they're doing it in the house instead of Koinange. I have no clue, but it's there. So she calls someone and the guy goes to her house. The minute the act starts, the guy is undressed. Some 2-3 ladies come in with photos, with phones. They take photos of the guy and ask him for money in return, or else they post that on social media. What do you do as a man? Chances are you're married, or you have a girlfriend, or you're a pastor, or you're a politician. It doesn't matter. What do? You actually give in and give out the ransom they want.
Yes.
When you come out of there, I'll tell you, even you as a person, you're very angered. You might not see that lady again or the ladies that were taking photos, but what you've left there with is anger against women. The day you find an opportunity, you will strike. Those are scenarios we don't talk about. Those are scenarios when the prostitution or the prostitutes come and talk about we are high risk. They don't talk about that element. they talk about the dangers they are exposed to by, you know, but the men who have been victim of the same, they're not talking about it. Why? Because the media doesn't hype their challenges, their pains. You get. So when you, on your second scenario in terms of online prostitution, just go around and you see young ladies between, actually as young as 16, 20, 25 and stuff, and you find our obsession of social media is so high, and you think the more nudes you post, the more likes you get, the more money you get, and stuff like that. And men know about it. If I go on social media and talk about farming, I'm unlikely to get 5 likes. But let me undress. I don't even look for followers. They just come. Yeah. So there are no opportunities in terms of maybe employment. And even those that have those opportunities, we talk about job retention for young people, is very slim. They come, 1 week you realize this guy can't deliver, and they are sacked. So job retention is a problem because they are very diverted. You get? An employer wants deliverables. I give you a target, you hit, I pay you. Failure to which, go home. Some of them don't want to hustle. Some of them don't want to sweat. The easier way out is social media. If I can undress and earn money, why not? Everybody loves attention. If 10 men who are handsome on social media DM me for a meetup and a guy comes with a Range or a Mercedes, my mind is blocked. This is an opportunity. I need to take this risk. Because they also know it's a risk. If you are called by a stranger somewhere and he tells you come to my house, it's a risk, and you know you're not a child. But because you want to take, this is the only way, Neza Omoka, so that's what they say. Let me take this risk, Neza Omoka. Yes. So and that is why you're seeing what is happening. The person on the other side is aware that you don't want to sweat. You want it easy? Come. I'll give you what you want, but you also need to give me what I want. If I've taken care of you for a week, it doesn't have to be long. I send you airtime, I send you lunch, I've paid your rent maybe for that month, I've sent your mom some money and stuff. When you come, because I've invested, that is an investment. Call it whatever you want to call it. That's a man investing. Sending you airtime, sending you Uber money, sending you money, that is an investment. When you come to my house, yes, and there's something I want from you, you refuse. I'm about to get angry. Why are you refusing? Why are you not? I need to get returns for my investment. And you're not even negotiating. That's the reality on the ground. That is the reality on the ground.
Rosemary, I'll be coming back to you because when you have this particular cases, you're introducing sort of a spanner in this conversation when you're saying, well, you can't just look at it in one direction. There's the other side as well. And by the way, if you do remember also some time last year, there were cases of, I know you've seen the Mchele cases, yes, that I will tell you for a fact as well, and whatever you're saying is true, that the media, we as the media people really do not pick up that wall. Go online and look at social media stories of men saying we've been drunk. There's so many of them in that as well. But Lisa, I want to understand the psychology of a 20-year-old woman. I really want to understand this morning. It's a good thing that you're here today. But I want to understand it from this perspective. Is it ever okay for us to question how a 20-year-old woman finds herself in the final year of her university studies, in the case of Rita Waini? Because if you're graduating from high school at what, 17, 18, you'd expect that you still have more years before you graduate from university. And number two, what can make a woman, I mean, in the psychology of meeting a stranger, I mean, those rules you like to believe they are open, first time meetups, you go to an open area, you're the one who actually chooses the place you're going to meet this person. maybe second or times when you've investigated this person, that's when you then go in and open your private life to them. But if you look at the specifics of this story, I would say that it was a first-time meetup in a place where a stranger essentially has the power over you. Could you tell us that? The psychology of a 20-year-old woman. Are you ever going to be considered an adult at 20 years? What do you know?
Okay, from a psychological point of view,
yes,
a 20-year-old lady, in terms of where she is at mentally, is you have to look at the circumstances that surround this individual. You have to look at their background.
Yes.
How are they at home? How is the family? Is it a family which they are? Is it a family which is struggling? Is it a family which is, maybe she is the one who's being looked at, regardless of whether she is 20. There's a 20-year-old firstborn and there's a 20-year-old lastborn. Those are two different people who have two different priorities in their mindset. So when we look at such a situation, psychologically they are at a stage where they are knowing themselves more. When they were in high school, like let's say in the teenage and the preteen,
yes,
it's those ones of who's looking at me, why are they looking at me like this, what am I supposed to do for people to like me? And if that continues as they continue like getting old, it stems now from attention. As women, as ladies, we like attention. And it's not something that is, it's looked down upon, but it's something that is innate. We like when we are told you look beautiful. We like it when we are told, oh, you are such an amazing lady. It's not something that is new, but it's something that has been there. But now when there's someone who is seeking that, and let's say there's a void that was there, that maybe they weren't appreciated as much, maybe they weren't recognized as much, and they find someone who is looking at them like, oh, you're the best thing I've ever seen, and it gets to them, there's that excitement of, oh really, you see me like that. And you find that with time, as they continue growing,
yes,
and if that is not worked on,
yes,
it will continue in finding that in men. And it's obvious, like, men know that we like attention. So if the way my colleague is saying, they provide, they say, don't worry, I'll pay for this, I'll pay for this. It's flattery. You're flattered as a woman, but you might not know what it is that they want from you. So it's something that we need to look at in the society of, yes, there's like they've termed this new age prostitution, but what is it that is missing and lacking?
Yes.
We usually look, in psychology, we look at background so much, the childhood. How was your family? How were you raised? Were your parents present? Were you the one who took up a responsibility of a parent who was absent?
Yes.
So there's so many factors that can lead to such a thing. I'm not quite conversant about Rita's background situation,
yes,
but in most cases, those are the things we look at. The personality of this person. There's a person who gets excited when they're noticed, but there's a person who, when they're noticed, they get really shy. Those are introverts.
Yes.
And they're extroverts who are the life of the party. So there's so many factors that can lead to a 20-year-old lady getting
That's
there.
it. Rosemary, just before I cross over to you as well, because we're digging on this psychology of a 20-year-old in university somewhere, because if you look at these particular cases, but even from last year, you find that the oldest is around 26, the rest of them are in their mid-20s, 23, 24, 21. I want to point out to something. I'm going to restrict myself to the cases that we've seen. Scarlett Wahoo was an outgoing personality on social media. In fact, there's one thing that I do not understand. Melissa, maybe you'll help us understand. That we, even as the media, when we are looking for profession, we want to assign a profession to Scarlett, and may her soul rest in peace, we rightly called her a socialite. So yesterday, I was looking deeply into what does a socialite do? You know, I couldn't find it. Like, I was like, are they selling something? I couldn't find anything that a socialite sells. I said, who is this person that we're calling a socialite? Then when I typed socialite, I was doing our research. Now I found that a lot as well. I ran into Instagram models again. Then I said, wow, who is an Instagram model? Then I ran into jokes. That if a girl can say that I'm an Instagram model, then a man can also say I'm an astronaut. So things like that, because they failed to attach a specific profession to that particular title. Case in point, Scarlett Wahoo was in the line of a duty. I mean, that's what we called it. We called it. This is what I do. Somebody has called me for that business that I do. I've got to go and meet them. And unfortunately, she met her untimely death. Who's a socialite? What is the impact of social media? Because we've glorified it. We even have a name for it. I'm a socialite. I am an Instagram model. Because if you specifically can't sell me something that, hey, I'm a socialite and this is what I'm selling, and there's a buy button on that particular description on social media, then I fail to understand what it is that you're selling. If you're telling me that I'm an Instagram model and I can't specifically buy something from you directly, then I fail to understand what it is that I'm buying. And guess what? This is what we're glorifying on social media. So what is a 20-year-old gonna do when they see the socialite in Dubai, when they see the socialite in UK, in New York? Aren't they gonna try and also be that? Is that what we're saying, that we have titles for them, but in reality we should be calling them something different?
Social media has become something so big that has helped people. We wouldn't disregard the fact that there are so many people who may have not afforded a place to sell something, but they found, I can sell my things on Instagram, online, and I am getting profits. The taxation isn't as much. I don't have to pay rent and all. So that's the bright side of social media, and also the information that we are getting. We are, if anything happens, like breaking news, we won't go look for a TV, and we will go on our phones, we will go to Twitter, we will go to, we see what's trending. So it has really helped in sending really quick information. And socialites, as you said, they are an upcoming group of, let's say, professionals, because if someone comes and says, I earn from Instagram, I earn from social media, I earn from TikTok, the question will be, how? How? Yeah. And it might be, TikTok is mostly about making videos, dancing and all. And for Instagram, it's totally different. It's pictures, it's showing people what you have been up to during the day and the things that you're doing, what you're buying, what you're eating. And there is a way that you can portray yourself. There is a way that you can portray yourself on social media that's not the reality. Because there's, you can say, I went to Kempinski. You just take the picture of the entrance, I'm at Kempinski, then you go. That's a whole different, but someone who sees that, they say, she was at Kempinski. So there's this soft life standard that social media and socialites portray, and sometimes it might not be the reality. Because you've asked, how can I pinpoint what it is exactly that they do? You might find when you gain popularity, brands now come to you. They're like, please, we're having this product. Could you market it for us? But still, before you reach there, there's so much that has to happen for you to be recognized. And one of the ways that happens is the way my colleague is saying. You might find me posting pictures, like pictures that are very attractive to the eye. It doesn't have to be either I am naked, I am half naked, but it's attractive. Someone will see that and find that attractive and might say, you know what, I want to pay for that. I would want to have that, just a moment of that, because when you look at Scarlett Wahu's case, she was big. She had a huge following. She was really beautiful. And there's that, I would just, even if it's just 5 minutes of her time, there's someone who is that, has that mentality, just 5 minutes of her time, and I'll be okay. But you find 5 minutes won't be enough. That's why they'll keep on trying and luring, and they say, I know she likes this, so I will offer this, then she will come. So it's something that has been portrayed as good, and someone who doesn't know, a lady who doesn't know, who's really young and doesn't know the background of it, might find herself easily swayed to start now being called a socialite and doing all that. Yeah.
Still on it, but we're not done with it. Because there's so many other areas that we're going to talk about that, because if you look at where these ladies are essentially meeting their untimely deaths, it's just online. There's an online story behind it. Rosemary, you know what? There's something that doesn't scare either men or women nowadays. And when I'm talking about women, I'm talking about these very young girls. It's called the Wababa culture. You know, we can run away from it. Even I personally, even in the social groups that I go to among men, you find that it's something very normal, you know, where men know very well that should I need a girl or a woman, there's so many women that are willing, knowing my circumstances as a married man, knowing that I'm not allowed to do that, it's just a phone call away, that their women were actively seeking this man. That we can sit here day and night and try and advise men and women, but specifically because we're talking about women, try and advise women about how it is wrong, or it is tricky, or it's dangerous to go and meet a man somewhere who you've never met in your life before, just because there's an exchange of money or goodies. But guess what? As we're seated here today, there's so many women were seated somewhere knowing that today I need to get 1 or 2 of them. That among women, the Wababa culture is a thing that is glorified. In fact, the word Mbaba has got a completely different definition among young women. So if we know that we are the prize, that we're not looking for these women, that it's the women who are looking for us, that we as men, is the women not looking for us. They're in the business of looking for us. We just have to be available. Is that why it's hard for us to stop these cases? Because you come from a losing point. Because if you're seeking for me to give me your services, I didn't come to look for you. You came to look for me. In fact, in this particular scenario here, you're the seeker and you're the seller. I just have to be available. That even lying to a woman, Rosemary, because you looked for me lying to you that I'm going to pay, and if you threaten to expose me, then I'll do something to you. It's very easy. That these women have put themselves in this scenario. That's why men are winning in it, because they're getting sought after. Is that why it's going to be very, very difficult for us to never, ever stop talking about these cases? Because it's never going to stop. In fact, somebody told me it is just starting. Now, we're in the commercial stage.
Sorry. One, it's not going to stop. And the thing is, which I find very sad to say.
Yes.
When we talk about from a perspective of a boy or a man, is that, and I was actually telling her earlier,
yes,
there's something about boys or men that is totally different from us. I was explaining to her, it will take me as a woman, in most cases, 90% of the time, if I need to kill someone, it will probably take 5 years to plot.
Is that?
Because, yes, because I will think, I don't want to be caught. What will happen to my children? What will happen to my property? What if something goes wrong and I got... We have all those things in our minds.
Yes.
And by the time you join the dots, it's 5 years. You still bring the man down at some point because that's where your target is, but you'll have put the dots to such a way that you actually, you know the way you create a scene.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes a while. The truth of the matter, and this is what I keep saying, women who advocate for boys and men, we are not against women empowerment. We are not even retrogressing the women agenda. We are just being real. A man would kill his wife, confirm she's dead, say he's used a panga. When he dashes out, he meets a soldier at the gate. The soldier sees the panga has blood and probably attempts to stop the man. Do you know what the man will do? High possibility. He'll kill the soldier.
The soldiers, well, yeah.
Those are 2 deaths within 10 minutes maybe. And if he goes and finds another obstacle, down. By the time I take my 5 years to plot, how many will have died? How many will you have killed as a man? By the time my 1 or 5 years is down.
That's a lot.
You understand? You understand? That is one scenario. That we need to accept that fact. That a man does not have to plot to kill you. He does not have to take an hour to plot to kill you. It is instant. If I pay you something and I expect something, because men 90% of the time they want sex. Let us call it as it is. If I invest in you, I call you in my house and I've done everything that I've done, and then you come and you refuse the only thing I want. Seriously? What do you think I'm your father? You understand? That is one scenario. That is something that people need to know.
Yeah.
The other thing that might be slightly off our topic is that I say it takes me 1 year. Pregnant term is 9 months. Yeah? And if you are good enough, you can, the 11th month you can get pregnant again. But at least it's 1. That is what is normal. Once. Do you know how many kids a man can get in a year? January to December. He can get 10 or 15 in a month. He can impregnate 15 in a month. Fanya hiyo times 12. That confirms that men and women are different. When we say girls and women need to be careful, we are not suggesting they are weak. We are just saying that is just your nature. You just need to be extra careful. Because a lot of arguments out there in social media, women are saying, why are society telling women to be careful? Why can't they stop these men from doing what they are doing? You see, aggressiveness, retrogressive, you're just being defensive. If I tell my daughter, be careful, come home early, dress nicely, decently, don't go fighting. I'm not saying she's weak. It's the same way, if you look at the president has everything he needs. But do you know, he's so concerned about his security, and he's the president. Sembuse my daughter. You get? The truth of the matter is, when you go out there, let us stop being defensive. We have a problem, and if we do not acknowledge where men are, how they operate, how they think, how they execute their feelings, this is not going to stop. If you go today, and I'm giving that challenge, go to any junior high school of boys, get into a class of 100% boys school. Just talk about, we've come here to talk about gender. I swear they'll throw you out. Hapa hakuna wasichana. There are no girls here. You go and do your girls, women. That's what they'll tell you. Those are primary kids. Secondary kids the same. Go here to UN and find men in a room and start talking about gender. The response you'll get is very aggressive. It's like, no. and it's given. I come to what you just said. Will it stop? It is not going to stop, because now we are breeding boys that are angered, and they have justification of being angered, because they think I will miss that opportunity just because I'm a boy, not because I can't qualify. I'll miss that scholarship because it's reserved for women. I'll miss that job because it is preserved for this. I'll be denied, or I'll be sent to jail just because I've been of rape which I didn't do, because I was just found in a wrong place. I cannot say hi to her as a way of approach because she'll accuse me of sexual harassment. You get? These guys are fixed. They're in a box. And by the nature of men, you can't stay in a box. You should be out there. So they are feeling cornered. All around, opportunities. The laws are on them. The police brutality, everything. And the media does not highlight these things that pertain them, because they think it's a non-issue. I've told you, and it's you who mentioned about the mchele thing in pubs. There are some clubs you go and they're like, men be aware of being drugged. You understand? They've actually put a sticker. It's the same argument that I have. If women are saying, don't tell girls to be careful, lock these men. So why do we have those? Why can't you lock those women who are dragging men? But that is not an issue. That is secondary. When men, and I'm saying this because the message out there, when a man dies in an A and B, they talk about what is this? That drug. Drug, and you know, it is dismissed. Actually, guys laugh about it.
In most cases,
You get?
I think you've seen majority of them.
Yes.
And those cases, by the way, we've seen them.
And there are very many. They happened last year.
There are many.
Was it a big deal? How many media houses came up and we sat here and we decided to discuss about men dying in A and B? Did you even have that? No. Whether you have it on media, whether you hype it or you don't, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old got to know it and was like, aha, my death is not important in this society. You get? It is a message we are sending. And that is why go to any secondary school, talk about gender. Those are kids that will be men and marrying and fathers in the near future. It will be bad. Because what you've done is like bringing up a child who feels he's always been cornered. His issues are never addressed. They talk about it's hard to repair a broken man. It's very hard. It's very hard. When a young man grows with lack of self-worth, he has no optimism, he has no hope. When that man gets to an age where he's marrying or he's dating, that thing that he's grown with doesn't go away. Any minute, he can strike. So, whether we hype the men issues or whether we don't, the media, the social media, like she says, is out there. These kids are very much on their phones. As like that has passed, these guys never highlighted. That another one has died. Police brutality, 4 boys have been shot, it has passed. You imepita. A wife has killed her husband. The media never picked, the government didn't even bother. That has passed. It goes accumulating. And that is why these guys can even butcher and feel nothing. I was telling her earlier, people are so much into laws and policies. This guy should be jailed. This guy should go to prison. But the truth of the matter is this. We've taken the perpetrator to prison. Then we have over 150%, 170% occupancy in our prison. At whose cost? Who pays your rent? It's you. Who buys your food? Is you. Who takes care of your medical bill? Is you. Who takes care of your education? Is you. Any individual in prison is getting all these things for free at your cost, at your expense. We have lawyers in prison who've gone through law in prison. We have guys who've gone through the entire process of education in prison. At whose cost? You get a terminal disease, ufanye makosa upeleko prison. They pick it up. These things we are paying 30,000 here for chemo, whatever. It's free in prison. At whose cost? You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
We need to have a solution, and prison is not a solution.
I'll be coming to the solution, and it's a good thing that you've introduced it, because on that particular area for empowerment, Melissa, we're normally told, go to school, get a career as a woman. But when you start to ask specifically about how a woman should behave, about how a man should behave, in most cases, if you introduce the conversation about how you, as a modern woman, should behave, you find that you are angering majority of these girls. In fact, and there's a true example, when I say that a woman has a role to play in the society and a man has a role to play in the society, and this is the way that you should live by it, stick to those codes, you're normally seen as the villain. You can't introduce it here. So you have girls who graduating from high school and college who have only been taught one thing: money and a career. So when you tell them to function in the society, while there might be rogue men or looking for them, they do not know how to even identify. They don't even know how a dating process should be. They have no social skill in meeting strangers. They don't. We're going to get into that as well. So we see where we're lacking in that particular one. But then I gotta ask you this as well. It's a good thing that we're talking to a psychologist right here on our panel today, that we can't run away from the fact that indeed there's a man here who was killed, to the scale of these cases that we've seen, where majority of these ladies are missing their limbs, or they're getting fatally short, or they're really grotesque images that we're seeing from these scenarios. Who's this man who's killing like this? I mean, it's the only things that we see in movies. And what is the psychology of a man who's going to kill like this? And if it's indeed true what Rosemary is saying, that it's never going to stop, are there signs that these women should look out for, knowing very well that this one, no, is a death trap? I should not go here.
The thing is, I'd like to echo on what she said. The cases of femicide, they've really been illuminated, like this is happening. But when it comes to when it's a man who is being killed, it's like a one-day thing, like in the news, and then they say, oh, sorry, that happened, then life moves on. So there is the reason, I think one of the reasons why this is being talked about, and I'll go to your question, is because you said the way it's being done, it's so scary, it's horrifying, to the fact that it's some things are blood, because it's not for, like, it's not something that is good to look at because of how it was done. And I was doing my research on what would make someone so angry, so aggressive, to do things in such a way. And I think it's because you've done this so much, and I always look at childhood. I'll keep on circling back to childhood. And when you look at a boy who is born in a family and a girl who's born in a family, they're treated differently. Maybe the girl is told, like the way she's saying, you know, you're supposed to be like this, you're supposed to dress like this, don't do this, you have a curfew. But for a boy, it's, oh, you're back, okay. There's no, where have you been?
Yeah, where have you been?
What were you doing?
No.
Who were you with? If there's a whole, it happens.
Yes.
Like you reach home at 10 as a lady, and you're like, where were you?
It's a big story, isn't it?
Do you know how dangerous it is outside?
Does it?
But for a guy, ndio kurudi. And
ndio kufika.
Yes.
Mzee wa familia, eh?
Yeah, amefika. And he's welcomed. Karibu. There's food. Eat. But for a lady, it's a whole questioning before it reaches there.
Does it?
So it doesn't start from when they're 18. It starts from when they were tiny. And things that happen at home are really important to look at when we are discussing such cases. And that comes to my first point of childhood experiences. Unfortunately, there are children who, even as we speak right now, they're living in homes where there is violence. The father might be the one who's the perpetrator, and in some cases, the mother is also the perpetrator.
Yes.
So if we look at a man, he comes from a family where, let's say, the father was an abuser. He comes home, beats the mom. If they try to defend the mom, they're in that mix, they're also violated, they're beaten, and they might go hungry because the dad didn't provide. Let's say the mom is a stay-at-home mom. There's that aspect of domestic violence at home when we look at these cases, when a child is in that situation, it can be a risk factor because that's what you're used to seeing. So I'm used to seeing women being beaten. My dad even beats my mom. So it's not that much of a big deal when it's this other lady. I mean, I'm not even related to her. So that is a mindset that is in some of these perpetrators, those ones of, I mean, it's not something new.
Yes.
We've seen this. I've seen this growing up. The children who live in like slums, it's not something that it's so normal. Your next door neighbor is being beaten by the husband, and the people at home are like, tumezoea, they'll go fight, then we intervene, the next day or a few days later the woman is back to where she was. So what can we do? So you see that the violence that someone experiences when they are a child is something that can continue, and it can be so normalized that even when he's doing something like this, it's not that much of a big deal. And there's also attitude, the attitude and the mentality of this person. And this is where the words such as patriarchy, toxic masculinity come in, those ones of there's that notion of women are the weaker sex, of which that is not the truth. But from time immemorial, that is what has been said, because men are the ones who are, most of them are leaders. They're the ones who make decisions for us. They're the ones they're the sounding board. So us, we are the ones to listen. So if there's such a situation where this man has that mentality and sees women as the lesser sex, and they won't, like such a thing, I mean, I know more than you. There's that mentality, sadly, not all, but some. And the sad thing is we can't know who thinks like this, who doesn't think like this. It's not written here, I think like this. That's why you said, how is it that we can learn this person to know this is a working red flag, this one I can accommodate, this one I can't accommodate? The other thing is, I'll tie it, is mental disorders and substance use. They go hand in hand, because in some of these cases we have found that there was alcohol involved, there was bang involved, and just drugs that were involved. And sometimes when these things go undetected, as psychologists and even psychiatrists, this client might come to you. Let's say they're being told they have antisocial behavior because they were beating people, or they were doing this, they were found smoking weed and all that. But if it's not detected from there, and this person is admitted and they get better, they are given medication, they don't take the medication, it will worsen and it goes undetected. And I'm not just talking about substance use, there's also other mental disorders. We always talk about narcissism, and every day people are saying, oh, he's a narcissist, he treated me like this. But in real sense, narcissism is such a big thing. Like we have a book, a book called the DSM-5. It has a whole chapter explaining narcissism. And it's something that it might be detected by very few in how this person carries themselves, how egocentric they are, how they view other people's opinions as not important. So there's also bipolar disorder, where there's manic episodes. This person just erupts, they're angry, they are throwing things, they're beating people and all, and there's the depressive episode. So these things go hand in hand also with the substance abuse.
Does it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Guess what? Ladies, I want us to take a tiny breather. Rosemary, once we come back, it is empowerment. And that's what leads to psychology, isn't it? My grandma told me that she used to punish me on a daily basis when she would hear a case where my mom has called me to the house and I didn't get there in less than a minute. I used to get from my grandma. And my mom confirmed that story. It's like, hey, your grandma couldn't allow you, bring nonsense to this homestead. She couldn't at all. The question is, have we stopped doing that? Are we telling men on how to relate to women? Are we telling women on how to relate to men? And it's a good thing that I've seen Collins Oluoch walk into the studio this morning. It's just going to open us to a legal perspective. If I'm caught with a prostitute and the country considers that illegal business, what framework does that woman have to take me to prison? On what basis? Because I can deny I wasn't there. Does she lose even before then she comes to the corridors of justice? Once we come back right here on the Morning Drip, we're talking about femicide. What is really behind it? Or is it deeper than we understand it? Hashtag the Morning Drip. Coming back after the break.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Bua muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya? Lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time hata angalia barabara. Tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. The set is full. That man we've been waiting for, Collins Oluoch, being a victim of the January traffic. in Nairobi. Yeah, Collins, how are you doing, sir?
How are you?
Happy to have you around.
Thank you.
We're talking about femicide, and we've laid background on exactly what's going on in the country, and we're asking the question whether indeed it is femicide or there are other things that we're looking across that we're not essentially seeing in this particular conversation. Collins, what we missed in the first part of the introduction is just the legal perspective of femicide. Now, of prostitution, sorry, because we've laid bases that indeed what's going on is these women were opening themselves up to these spaces where they've met their untimely deaths. So, reading on what section 153 and 154 of Penal Code essentially states that although prostitution is not criminalized by national law, municipal bylaws may prohibit it. We do know that Nairobi banned all sex work in December 2017. It is illegal to profit from the prostitution of others and to aid, abet, compel, or incite prostitution. That is section 153 and 154 of the Penal Code. We leave it there, and then we look at what is new age prostitution. And we lay the basis that indeed for any woman who really wants to sell their services, currently with the way it is, they don't have to go very far. I mean, it's just online and you're selling yourself. That when you look at what protects you as a woman who opens himself up to this space, should you find yourself, for example, in Nairobi, like the Scarlett Wahoo case and the Rita Waini case, if indeed they were in this business, then you find that you really expose that the law hasn't really figured out how to introduce mechanisms to protect any other person who finds themselves in this place. It's a place we've given it a black face. If you find yourself there, we are so sorry that we would investigate the aftermath. That's what the law essentially speaks. That's why all of a sudden now we are getting lawmakers jumping at this case saying that we need to regulate Airbnbs in the country, that they need to give us full disclosure of the person who picks it up immediately and after they leave. We need that information. Collins, is that what is making this easy now for any other man then who wants to commit crime in this area? That it's quite easy. In that particular country or in that particular city, it's illegal. So those people are not protected. So should I really want to commit crime? Easy place.
I'm really having a lot of problems reconciling the nexus between femicide and prostitution. This is the reason I'm having an issue reconciling those two. I don't think they are connected at all. I don't think the case of Starlet or Rita Waini, or I think yesterday there was another one, Agnes.
Yes.
Last year, for the first time in 5 years, we think we recorded the highest number of femicide cases, to 152. And even this year, how it has started, I think now we are counting at 11, the ones that have been reported on mainstream media. I don't think there is a nexus between that and prostitution. I see that being out of cruelty of men. And I don't think we need to sit and talk about how those women have availed themselves in a way of prostitution, rather subjecting themselves to their victims, because those people have been under the guise that they are going to have a time together with the people that they've ended up being murdered by, the people that have ended up taking away their lives, and that never had an issue, or rather there was no reason behind that we can say these people were rather, how they called, socialites, or they were rather prostitutes. I don't think that is the point. You know, the biggest issue in this country, or rather even in the world, is you can...
Sex workers came out to protest the killing of their mates.
They came out to protest about the rights of women, not the killing of their mates.
If drivers come out and say that we are concerned about the killing of our 11 drivers this year, and they're saying our colleagues, you like to think that those were drivers and they know what it is they're saying, Collins.
I don't want to say those ladies who lost their lives are prostitutes. I don't believe they were.
Yes.
I don't think they were, and I think it would be so unfair to the grieving families to term them as prostitutes. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is this. You see, the background of our laws has always been informed from the perspective of morality, and that, just to answer your question on the penal code, the background of our laws have been informed by morality and ethics, yeah? And before morality, we have natural law, that once you're born, you know stealing is bad, not because you've interacted with the law, but because you know from maybe a Christian background or from a religious background that you know this is bad, this is good, this is good, this is bad. That is what we call natural law. Natural law, therefore, tells you what is moral and what is not moral. Our society, we've sat down and we've had a discussion and we thought this is moral and this is not moral. You remember the former president saying things like homosexuality, for instance, are immoral to us, and so they are non-issues to us. There are jurisdictions where those things are deemed to be moral to them. For instance, in Netherlands, prostitution is permitted. It's legal in Netherlands, for instance, a country like that. In Kenya, we've not gotten to a point where we are saying things like prostitution are allowed. If you read the hidden meaning, or rather if you read the lateral text of what Section 154 talks about in the Penal Code, you will be blinded to think prostitution is allowed in this country. But if it tells you no one is permitted to gain from proceeds of prostitution, prostitution is not a free venture. It's a business. So if you're going to do a business, you're going to get profits off it. But the law is saying you cannot benefit from the gains of prostitution. And also it goes further, I think, to talk about touting, or rather to talk about advertisement and to talk about marketing yourself in the sense of just the services you're offering as a prostitute. That is illegal. So if, in as much as it refers us back to county legislation, which is called municipal law in that section, it refers us back to county legislation because it's in charge of that jurisdiction. Yes. Even in the text of the penal code, prostitution itself is illegal in Kenya. So we've not gotten to a point of allowing prostitution. But then the cases of femicide in this country have been because of the cruelty that men have been, and I want to take this opportunity to apologize to our ladies on behalf of men that it has been so unfortunate what is happening. People have lost it. There's just so much madness going on. And I don't think there's justification behind that. You don't have to say, oh, that is someone's daughter, or that is someone's sister. No, 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 that is someone. That is a human being. So the moment you're taking life of a human being, or you're taking advantage of someone, I don't understand why you'd even take a power saw to cut someone's head. It's not because they are a prostitute or because they... And most of these cases, those people have been laced, their drinks have been laced. After being laced, they have been raped. After being raped, now they have been killed. They are not prostitutes. If you're a prostitute, then it's about payment and getting your service. But these people have, their drinks have been laced. They have ended up dead, yes. Almost all of them. Yeah. Let
me just, before I cross over to Rosemary, because we've gotten to the point of talking about empowerment, that, Collins, we might run away from it. We might run away from it. That even as you speak this morning, majority of people would deem you politically correct. That in as much as you might know that in one way or another, that when you start to look at the individual cases of these women, you do know that the nature of transaction that essentially took them to this particular Airbnbs, you would say, well, it is what it is. You might want to call it. That indeed, if they're finding themselves in this space, and there are people who know very well that this is not essentially a protected area, it's not essentially an area that this country has looked into and really laid down laws and principles in order to protect the players in it, now it's quite simple for you to go in and commit crime. And easily at that, Collins, is that what it is?
One, I'm not politically correct. Yes. Since 2014 to 2017, I worked in FIDA Kenya. I know you are aware. Yes. Yes. And during our time there, we traversed the country and wrote a book called Girls' Education and the Attack in Kenya. At that time, I think the Airbnb business was not in Kenya at that time. Yes. We've had cases and we've had scenarios where people, women have been killed by their boyfriends, not in Airbnbs, but in their houses. We've had situations where husbands have killed their wives in the houses, and that's why we have an act, Anti-Domestic Violence Act. It's just preventing violence against women. We have that legislation not because of the area of Airbnbs being a center where we thought as a country we needed to legislate. People created Airbnbs because we thought hotels were expensive, and so Airbnbs were coming in as an alternative to that. But then where the scene of crime is happening keeps shifting from our bedrooms to our houses to our sitting rooms. Now it's going outside to the Airbnbs because these are people who what they want to perpetuate, they want to perpetuate it outside, because in an Airbnb setting, and you see in this case, for instance, of Waeni, we end up not getting the murder suspect, we end up arresting the owner of the business. Because even in a country as Kenya, we've not had stringent legislation insofar as taking data of the users of that facility is concerned. And that's why you see the owner of that Airbnb is now inside, is in bars, because you as a manager, you ought to have taken due diligence to ensure the people who are using your premises, these are their details, this is the person who booked, this is where they're coming from. Like, you ought to have extracted, at that point you ought to be a data processor, you ought to have processed enough data so that in case anything happens, then we can fall back to you and you tell us, this is the person who booked this ride. You see, for instance, if someone is raped in an Uber, we can go to Uber and say, this guy requested this ride from this point to this point. And we can be able to identify who was the driver like that. That's what is now being proposed insofar as legislation is coming out, insofar as legislative proposals are coming out, insofar as the area of Airbnbs are concerned. Not really to protect femicide. I don't think femicide is really just inhibited in Airbnbs. And I think out of 152 cases that we reported last year, you would get like 3% is what happened in Airbnbs. So for me, I think the biggest issue is femicide, and that is the loss of lives of women out of recklessness and cruelty of men. And I don't think that can be amalgamated, or rather that can be solved by addressing issues of Airbnbs and legislations around that business area. That I think that is diversion of what is really the issue. The issue, I think, is just we need to go back to the basics and get to a point where we have to instill this, that women are not properties for men, and that women are supposed to be appreciated, and men are supposed to be told, you should not be expecting that once you have someone. At the end of the day, I mean, we have Sexual Offences Act, and it boils down to a simple thing as consent. If they don't say yes, and yes is unequivocal, it's just yes. It's not implied. It's just unequivocal yes. If they don't consent, then you don't have rights over them. As simple as that.
Pretty much. I'll be coming to you on that, Collins, because I'm sort of asking the question that, are we making proper examples of cases where men are killing women in this country? I'll tell you that the biggest case that we've seen currently is one of the Ivy Wangeshi murder, where the court handed Kinuthia 40 years in prison. It was a 6-year case in building, all the way from 2016 up to 2023. So we say, well, if these cases are not open, is the judicial, the justice system in the country also failing just to make proper examples out of it? People said, now we can talk about it. It's a thing that happened in an open. I mean, multiple witnesses of this particular case for Ivy Wangeshi. And why would that case take 7 years to reach its conclusion? That people forgot about it. They talked about the incident heavily within the country, almost forgot about it. Now it almost became news. Like, oh, guys, remember that case 6 years ago? It's been concluded, and that guy's been given 40 years. Is that what is lacking also? Rosemary, I'd like us to further this particular conversation then onto, if indeed what Collins is affirming here is, Collins is like, hey guys, you remove protection out of it, remove the Airbnb cases out of it, talk about what it is that men are getting, is the quality of men in these particular cases. Are we not doing proper empowerment from even our institutions? Are we focused on getting money, get a career? That's it. So you're churning out men and women who have got no skill whatsoever on how to relate to their other sex. Is that what it is?
I think
Rosemary, even going back to those specific examples that you gave me of, well, if you're here and I'm going to provide for you and refuse to give me that service, then
I think it's good to, there's the element of law, theory, I would call it that. If you look at some of, there's something that Kenyans say, ground and different.
Does it?
And what is on the ground is what is real. But you can't run away from that. When he's mentioned about what the law says, he's mentioned about they've done research on abuse against girls and women.
Yes.
There's also a publication, I think a report was on that part. And if you listen at Collins?
Yes.
Wakili Collins.
Yes.
He's talked about girls and women. Men killing women. That's what he's talked about. Mm-hmm. And coming from a boy's perspective, based on what I do, boys and men advocacy, if I listen to him, if I was a young man, and you can probably confirm with a few young men who are here, they feel left out in whatever he said, throughout. You understand? Mm-hmm. And that is what exactly I said earlier. When we get into a societal challenge and we intentionally decide we will pick on this challenge affecting girls and women, and we leave this challenge affecting boys and men, and they are similar, what you're trying, the message you're trying to send across is that your issue is not an issue. You get? In Kenya National Human, KNCHR, mm-hmm. during 2007 election, which I'm 100%, chances are media is not even aware of that. They did a report on harassment or abuse of men during 2007. You might be aware of the rapes of girls and women during 2007 and 2008. But you have a full report where manhood were chopped off or shot in large numbers. I'm sure that never came out, but that report is somewhere on some shelf. You understand? Whatever we discuss in media or on social media pertaining girls and women, and men and boys are also fall victim of the same. And we do not mention them, we are sending a message to them. Yes. And that is why I have the guts as a man to brutally kill. You get? You put aside your son for 10 years, at some point he'll strike. You get? And I mentioned, and I will say it again, we are different. We think we need to protect our girls and women. They are vulnerable. But every single human being is vulnerable in his own way. And I'm not justifying the murders. I lost my daughter 2 years ago, a 22-year-old. So I'm not justifying about girls and women killings. I'm not justifying. But we need to appreciate and start sending right signals to society. And not the signals that you are sending that we are biased. We want to focus on girls and women. When FIDA talks, it's about girls and women. You understand? And I said, men have died in these A and Bs. Men have been killed by their wives. Men have been brutally killed, and young men by police. Yes. Men have been dragged in pubs and clubs and died. It's never an issue. And we can have a million laws and policies to protect girls and women. But as long as we do not engage the society in totality, you can send them to jail. I've done a lot, go to media, you talk to a young man, I don't care. I don't. Me nakula hapa, I can be taken to the, I have free education at your expense. Look at the budget in the Ministry of Interior. At your own expense. I think we need to go beyond what we are doing. We need to engage both boys and girls. And whatever we are happening, and I said, and I'll say it again, it's not going to slow. You can hype it as much as you want in your spaces. Because issues of girls and women and whatever we are talking about femicide is totally hyped. Yes. It is there fine, but that is what is selling. Yes. That is what all media stations are talking about. Did we have the same hype when men are getting dragged in clubs? Did we have the same hype when women are killing men? What message are we sending to a 16-year-old young man out there? They don't care. It goes beyond laws. It goes beyond it goes beyond what we want to do with these young men. Majority, and the numbers are increasing, do not care.
That's it.
And that is the truth.
Melissa, let me come to you before we come back to Colin's on whether the law is made it clear. There are some juries, Collins, that the law is very clear to the point that you know very well that there's something that you can attempt. I'll be coming to you on that. And there's a socialization. Is that what it is now? That somewhere there are women who are seated who've got no social skill whatsoever of how to relate to these men. I mean, it's got to come down to that if we're looking for where the root cause of the problem is. So you've got to look at both sides of the coin. And there's some men seated somewhere who've got completely no social skill of how to relate to their fellow women. That's why these cases now are getting amplified in the society. I mean, we said it is never going to stop. I mean, that's what it is. It's never going to stop. So where's the problem? Where have we got it wrong in terms of socializing these men and women to exist?
I'd like to echo on what she's saying, that ladies and women and girls are really being focused on in terms of women empowerment, and there are various reasons why this is happening. And maybe it's because of the law cases, like they're being reported not many cases are being reported in terms of women killing men, but truth be told, the statistics are the ones that speak out. The very few, it's a lot. The number of women who are going through any form of gender-based violence is higher. And it's because of maybe we can give props to the reporting of how it's happening, of where it's happening, the numbers are being said. And now we go back to what you have asked in terms of socialization. We as women are very vocal, and I pride myself in being vocal as a woman, because it shows that if there's something that is missing, something has to be done about it. That's why women empowerment has become so rampant, is because we would like for a better future for the girl child. And that's why we are seeing, the way she had said earlier, opportunities are set aside for women and girls. It's because we have really done our best as women to air out our views, to give out our reasons why we would like this form of equality and equity in the society. However, I would pose it as a challenge, because you've said there are men out there who don't know how to relate to women. And if me as a woman, I go tell a man, you're supposed to relate like this to another woman, I don't think it would be taken with so much heaviness than when it's coming from a man. And I will talk about, I always keep on circling back to this, families. Charity begins at home. There's a very huge rise in single parent families, and it's something that it has been discussed, and I feel like we need to talk more about it. Some situations are a no-go zone, because let's say if it's because, let's say, the father was an abusive parent, we can't let this lady stay there, because she will lose her life and also the lives of her children. But we have to encourage more of involvement of the men in the society in raising these boys who will become the future fathers, the future leaders. So men empowerment, literally.
Is that a predominant culture in Kenya that sort of puts a man in a different pedestal, that women are here and I'm here? Is that what it is? Is that culture? Melissa, would you point it out?
I can't say it's in Kenya. It's literally everywhere.
Even at a time when we're making proper progress in this country about opportunities for both men and women. I mean, it doesn't have to go very far. Even when you look at graduation from high school to university, when you look at the number of women versus the number of men who are graduating, you will say, well, we are reaching that parity in terms of equal opportunities. Look at the numbers that were graduating from universities. You said that the women now in this country are also getting put up there, to the point that if it's about choice and opportunity, is almost 50-50 now. Is that not what it is, Melissa? Then what are we talking about these cases then?
From what I have seen
Yes.
in the society, there is still an imbalance. And you said there's women who are being enrolled more than men. We are really doing our part. I will protect my own. I will protect and I will fight for someone who is similar to me, because I know what she's going through. I know how it feels when, let's say, I'm walking down the street and it's 10 p.m. and I see a man coming towards me. I won't be like, this is such a friendly face. You know, I'll even say hi. No, the first thought will be, what if this person will try to harm me? Sadly, like 90% of women, that's what is in their mind. But maybe this guy is just walking and he's going home. But that's not how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
We're going to do, as women, we have really tried in this women empowerment situation to really empower the ladies and the girls. And I will keep on advocating for men to be part of men empowerment, because we can't be empowering women and girls. And I really like what she's doing, because she's a woman, but she's also looking at, yes, you're empowering girls, how about these boys? It's not, we are going far and beyond. What are the men doing? What are the men who are older, the leaders, what are they doing for boys? It's not, we are doing it, actually, sometimes it feels like charity work when we are the ones saying, you know, we've really empowered these ladies and girls, let's do this for also boys. But the way she said, you go to a school and you're talking about gender and it's a woman who's talking, they'll be like, aye, this, you go talk to the girls. When it's a man going there and telling them, yo, this is how guys are supposed to behave.
Yes.
You don't talk to a woman like this. You don't do this. You're supposed to be respectful. That's how you gain things in this society. There's very few that's happening among men.
Yes.
And I feel we can't do all that. A woman can't do all for them, for a man, for the ladies, and for a man.
That's it. Collins, I'll be coming to you on that. That just a lot of people speak about exactly what we're getting it wrong in terms of that socialization and empowerment. Collins, here's a question, and I want to put it straight to you. Remember when I was in college, there was this famous case of a university student, Nairobi university student, was doing law, by the way, who lost her life in Westlands. She was from the Kalenjin community. And a lot of people were implicated in this particular case, top politicians in the country. And you know what? That case to date has not been concluded. That's almost 10, 11 years down the line. Popular cases in this country about where women have been killed by even ex-governors in this country without even going into the details of that particular case, because some of them are ongoing. You know what, Collins? Not been concluded, even when there is glaring evidence. Now, let me take you back to this particular case here of one Wangeshi. You know, it's like from a movie scene. There even videos have been recorded of this particular case, Collins, where right in front of the university, a man comes in and an axe and hacks a woman to death, where even if the courts were supposed to pick witnesses, they just have to go online and get the videos, and they'll get multiple witnesses of this particular case. But guess what? This particular case, for even the current ongoing cases where a governor is implicated, it is taken 5 years. Still counting. This particular case for Wangeshi, right in the broad daylight, it just got concluded late last year, but took 4 years behind the corridor of justice. And I give you this example. You know what they say about China? If you're got in a corruption case, it doesn't take long. 1, 2, 3, 4 days behind bars. Is it what it is, Collins, that when it happens, we do absolutely nothing, or We take so long as a justice system in this country to the point that even if somebody was thinking about doing it tomorrow, they'll still go right ahead and do it tomorrow because they've not seen this 40 years. They've not seen a governor go in for 50 years. They've not seen a top politician in this country go in for 60 years. Somebody said yesterday that even as we're speaking currently, there are sitting members of parliament who've been recorded shooting people in broad daylight, who've been recorded killing people in broad daylight. But guess what, Collins? That in some way or another, the justice system in this country is safe. You see, when it comes to murder cases in this country, we're just going to be very slow about it. We are not going to stamp our foot and make a lesson, even in cases where we have glaring evidence. Is that where the other problem is now, Collins?
That's a very interesting question, coming from the background of the judicial onslaught
that's
ongoing.
But
you know, I give it to you, you're right. But also, Kenyans are the ones who gave us this constitution. And in that constitution, therein lies the rights of an arrested person that says that he is presumed innocent until found guilty by the court. Then in the justice system, there are a lot of players who are playing their roles, and they are playing their roles in different levels. And this one has an ultimate effect on the result that you're going to get and how fast you're going to get the result. If you take, for instance, the presidential petitions, they have timelines in this country that we say the presidential petitions have to be heard within 21 days after elections, and they have to be, the matter has to be solved within that period of time. We don't have, other than that, we don't have other specific, apart from, I think, children cases and small claims. Small claims matters, the ones that have timelines for how long they should take in the court system. So you have, for instance, you have the inspecting officer, who is a police officer, who needs to collect evidence. You know, courts are not moved suo moto, like they are not moved on their own. A judge cannot sit and say, I watched this on the news yesterday, and so I'm moved to ask the OCPD to bring these people and apprehend them before court, and the judge goes on to say, I cannot be convinced otherwise. I was there, I saw what happened, and so you're guilty. That cannot happen in this justice system because we are a democratic country, and you've promulgated a constitution that we should be guided by that constitution. So I'm saying there are a lot of players in this justice system that maybe they're not playing their roles how it's supposed to be, or they're sloppy insofar as playing their roles are concerned. But at the end of the day, justice is always going to come. At the end of the day, it's always going to catch up with them. I hope so.
Yes.
In those instances that it has done so, I think we have cases that have been successful, and we have a lot of people who are behind bars. But it's just these profile cases, high profile cases that you see. If I am a governor and I am being suspected of murder or rape, for instance, there is a member of parliament who is accused of rape, and the case was withdrawn from court just before he was elected. We have, I think, 4 who are accused of murder, and their case I've always told. What do? Once you're an elected leader or else you're a prominent figure, you appoint a battery of 50 lawyers, and you know that is within your rights. You can have as many lawyers as you want. You appoint a battery of 50 lawyers, and so they can drag the case as long as they want. And so also another thing about those cases, they are not complicated. For instance, let's take the Rita Mwaeni case.
Yes.
I don't think it's yet in court. Oh, the people are in court. I'm not going to talk about the merits. But on one end, you're having a CCTV footage that's showing a person who is light-skinned. We're having people who are dark-skinned who are being apprehended, who are being brought before court as suspects. You know, that case is going to take so long because, one, we don't have any evidence apart from electronic evidence. In this country, we don't allow electronic evidence as evidence. Or rather, if it's permissible, the guidelines that we are going to allow an electronic evidence are so stringent that you're not going just to produce a video that I shot this guy hacking this lady to death and you're going to admit it as evidence. No. In a generation where we have AI coming into play, a generation where we have a lot of technological influence coming into play, a judge is not going to sit and just say, okay, this is evidence, so we are going to admit it. The evidence has to be weighted among there are a lot of factors that have to be considered before we admit a CCTV footage, for instance, that we had a short snippet of that guy. I don't know, he was on call or something like that. That short snippet of that guy, before we admit it and say, now we can see you here and we can see you on the stand. This is you, and so you are guilty. Before we get to that point, it will take you forever for you to get to a point that you are certain such things. So it is us Kenyans that gave this constitution, and it's not lawyers that are complicated. And also, if you're in court, we want to presume that you are innocent until you hear your side of the story, what happened. And also, we have defenses to everything that people do. It's just going to be a straight jacket that is, this is murder, and so you cannot defend yourself because this is murder. You're supposed to be sentenced to life imprisonment. No. We have to hear you. There are people who have insanity, for instance. They had insane delusions at that time that they were committing that offense. There are those people who it's defense, not in the sense of femicide. Those people who it's they are defending themselves. Like you see, there are a lot of defenses that even come up. And so before a matter is really litigated from the onset to the end, it's going to take you a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah, because those people are also going to not going to go down without a fight.
That's it, isn't it? I mean, Collins, just before crossover to Rosemary, I mean, the law in major instances, Collins, sometimes it even runs away from what is black and white. That, well, it is black and white, but in majority of instances, we take that on the side and then look at what precedents are we setting as even the judiciary within this particular country. I mean, Collins, maybe make us understand, if an election petition, and we've seen the amount of evidence that normally goes into those particular houses. I mean, the last petition, we saw an entire lorry come up with thousands of files that those particular judges were able to peruse through within that short window and give a ruling within 21 days. I mean, is it that at the end of the day, that even if this is a concerning issue within a country, just like how we talk about corruption, how we talk about other areas of funds embezzlement, that should they decide that within in this country, this is exactly what we're going to do with murder cases, essentially the ones that have femicide issues on them, that we can conclude them within a month, within 6 months, that they can do that if they decide, Colette.
As desirable as it is, I don't think it is going to be possible for that to happen.
Why not?
Even corruption cases cannot, apart from presidential petitions, because you see, these are 7 judges who are hearing a matter within 21 days, and they have the laxity, rather they have the advantage, they have the advantage of having researchers on board, they have an advantage of, they are well-resourced at that time, and even these people who are producing, who are bringing those evidence are told to bring the evidence, one, in soft copy, and in hard copy. And that's why you see a lorry coming. It's not because that all that was evidence, but it's because the parties in that case, each of the party has to be served with what you're filing. So if I'm filing a 30 document and I have 11 defendants, every defendant has to get 30 copies of what I have filed. So you if you want to multiply that, it's a huge bunch of what I'm bringing to court. So you imagine, we have a murder case that is happening in Lokichogio, a murder case that is happening in Samburu, in Nairobi, in Kisii. We have one judge that is going to sit and listen. We have an IO that has to they have to go on and do investigation, bring to us people who you apprehended and that you are suspecting, the suspects, that you have to even carry out an identification parade, line up these 7 people. You know, I'm just not going to pick you unless you're a prominent person, unless we know you. I'm not just going to pick you and bring you before court. We have to bring you, line you up with people who are like you, who look like you, with insofar as height is concerned and physical appearance is concerned, around 7 to 12 people, line up those people, bring a witness, for instance, the guy who interacted with this person who hacked Waeni, bring a witness, try and identify how did he talk, ask these people to do those imitations that this person did before you, and then after that we now settle and say, this is the person that we think is the suspect. Bring the suspect in court, let them take a plea. After they've taken plea, it's within their rights to ask for bail, because that is in the constitution. Whether you committed murder or not, you are supposed to be granted bail, and so the court will weigh whether we should give you bail or not. If you are a flight risk, we're not going to give you bail, and all those factors are going to be considered. So before we exhaust all those avenues, we even have cases that people have not taken plea to this point, and they're still out in remand. They're still out. They've never been brought before court. They've never taken plea to this point, because one, the judiciary as it is, it's understaffed. 2, and I've said, this justice system, there are people who play very integral roles, and they don't do their roles, or rather they are not well resourced to do their roles, or rather they are sloppy in doing their roles. For instance, just at the investigation stage, that is where we always lose all the cases. It's point blank. You see, the murder has been committed. We have a lifeless body here before us, but the person who is in charge of conducting, investigating, and saying, coming up with that file before it's brought before the prosecutor, that is the weak link that we have in our justice system. And so if we would maybe resource those people well or empower them well, then our cases would go until conclusion easily. But let me just point to one thing that I wanted to jump onto. We have a pipe that has burst and water is gushing out of that pipe. But we have a situation where we are sitting and saying, that pipe is plastic, we ought to have gone for metallic pipes, or oh, the area is rocky, or we want to start and looking at what is the degree of the tap that had opened, or rather where's the water coming from? Yeah. That is what we are doing with this femicide issue. We are sitting and saying, yeah, lives are being lost, but wait, before lives are being lost, we are having an issue of Airbnbs here. Before lives are being lost, we are having an issue of this here. We have to first stop that water from gushing out. And how do you stop that water from gushing out? Yes. Is by putting your feet down and saying, it's not even about declaring femicide a national disaster, because that is just a cosmetic thing that our leaders are going to do. By putting our feet down and saying, these are the measures we need to take to prevent this from happening. And at this stage, as we are talking, out of 152 cases last year, I think it's only 7 that men died out of 7. Out of 152. That does not mean that those lives are not valued, that those lives are valueless. No, they're not valueless. But at the point, what we are having, the issue that we are having, the disaster, is that women are losing their lives. So how do we stop that from gushing out? And then after we've stopped it, then can we now come and start addressing and saying, that pipe is plastic, can we now change that pipe to be metallic? Or can we now say, this is a rocky area, can we level the ground?
Yeah. You know what, Rosemary, that's the next part, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes because we're chatting the final chapter of the discussion this morning. It's a very important question, and we've not had it from both sides, even in this government, by the way. But how do we stop women from losing their lives in this particular conversation? Even as you champion for the voices of men in this particular conversation, the numbers will be glaring when it comes to women who are losing their lives. Is that a way forward?
I think from where I sit, what we are suffering from is beyond law, beyond the legal way, because like I mentioned, the occupancy already in prison is beyond. Yeah, it's about 180 or 170 occupancy. That is double of what it's supposed to contain.
Yes.
So unless we think of building others, is that a solution? I don't think so. It might be deter. That is where we have it. If I do something and I go to prison, somebody else is going to learn from it and not do what I did. What is the percentage of that if the numbers still increase? Is that law having impact out here? If people, is people going to prison stopping the murders? If, according to what he said, the numbers are, and it's a lot, 150 something, it's a lot.
That's a lot.
So it means it is beyond, it is one solution out of many. Yeah? That is one. 2, we need to have a national conversation about GBV without necessarily being biased. Because those 7 cases of men who've lost their lives vis-a-vis to women who've lost their lives, and basing on the environment that we live in terms of women and girls empowerment, and I gave you a challenge, go to university, go to secondary, go to primary, talk about gender to boys. They're like, you don't even know about us. There is that anger. So it means those 7 cases that you are downplaying sends a very big message to the people, to the perpetrators. You get the concept? Yeah? Because if majority of perpetrators on GBV are men, and one case is not even discussed, the people who consume that one case of that one man, which has not been given the attention it needs, are very many. Are very many. They feel it is them against us. You've heard people talk about gender wars, gender hatred. It is out there. It is out there. And I talk to boys. They're like, prison is not even a big deal, by the way. I'll be very honest. It's not. It's not. They are not scared of going to prison. But if we go back to society and start engaging both genders, this is it. We do not need to sit and talk about, which is so often, which makes me uncomfortable. We are ever discussing what men ought to do for women. You need to respect women. You need to do this. You need to behave this. You need to provide this. Is there any conversation you've ever had about what women ought to do for men? This is how you're supposed to treat your man. Hardly. Hardly. It is them for in reference to. You get? So the society already is divided. And that is the reality. And we talk about things qua ground in different. It's already divided. There is hatred. How do I take care of you as a human being, as a man? Look at your issues, address them, give them the attention they need, love and kindness and compassion. Let the society be worried when young men are brutally killed. Let them realize the society also cares. And I'll give you one good example, and that is what I'm saying. It goes beyond the law, and I'm being honest. Whatever happened in Kitengela, was it Kitengela?
Yes.
Where the lady car was stoned. I will just put yourself into those boda guys. A guy left home in the morning, his livelihood is purely on that boda. Labda bibi afanyi kazi. Sawa sawa. That he depends on that boda to pay his children's fees. But that guy, at that particular time, what did he do? He picked a stone, akatupa wapi? Kwa gari. Now he's inside. Boda yake iko police station, na yeye yuko
kondani.
You get? I go back to exactly what I said. Wiring. These guys are different. That at that particular time, he never remembered that his family depended on his boda. But he never remembered. But he took a stone and so he's inside. The family is stuck. So the way we approach these issues is very key. You get? We are meingizwa ndani. Have we resolved? If another case happens, a similar case is bound to happen. I remember there was another one at Forest Road.
Yes.
This one happened. Did the Forest Road stop this one from happening? Even tomorrow it will still happen. Basic. There's a lot of anger on gender out there. Men and boys feel left out. And it is a natural instinct. They will react. And jail is not a solution.
Melissa, but I want you to take also 3 minutes on this particular question. And that's something that you've kept on going back to over and over again. And guess what? That stat is actually quite open. The 90% of incarcerated black males in every other prison that you go to, if you start to investigate where they come from, you find single parenthood, you find the dad left, the mom left, or there's something that is really going on within the family. Biggest terrorists in the world. If you look at the life of Osama bin Laden, Ted Bundy, the guy who used to kill women as well, you find that there's something that's going on within the family that has not really been solved. Is that what we need to talk about now? And do you realize that that fabric is what we're building up in this country?
We usually say in psychology, the family is the first contact community an individual grows in. It doesn't matter if, let's say, the person who is born and they are an orphan, they will have to have a place where they call home. It doesn't matter if it's at a house, it's in the street, but there's a family that is usually formed. And that's why I keep on emphasizing we have to start from when they're small, because that's when we learn. And I will keep on posing this question to the men, because we are doing a lot. There's, I don't know how many NGOs, there's so many branches in high organizations that are talking about women.
No, sir.
What are the men doing about the men? A father is such an important person in anyone's life. Even when a child is born and they're raised with a single mom, you'll find the child keep on asking, where is dad? Where is my father? And it will reach a point when he or she is old enough, they'll look for this parent, regardless of whether this parent wants anything to do with them or not. So we should stop downplaying the role of a father in a family, because there's something that a mother can do, a father can't do. There's something that a father can do that a mom can't do. We need men to stand up and take leadership in their families, even if it's at work. Yes, they're good at work, but what about at home? Your children. These are the children who, if they're not raised well, they're the ones who are growing up and becoming serial killers. Because there's no remorse, there's no empathy in what they're doing. I mean, this is so normal to me. It's nothing that is too, it's not something too big. So we need to look at the fabric of the society as starting from home, the family. What are men doing? As we're going to do our part, as women, we are continuously going to fight for women's rights and for women and girls. But as men, what are you going to do to ensure that the boys and the future fathers and husbands and all those guys who are coming, what are the men doing about it?
Pretty much. Yes. Kolo, 2 minutes, cap this particular conversation. I'm going to ask you a legal perspective of it, that if indeed it reach a time when we want to look at these 152 cases last year and say, national disaster, declare an emergency about this particular issue, what should be the right reaction from the government? And from this perspective, in line with how the law should now react as regards this particular case? 2 minutes.
I think what the government can do is just to resource the judiciary and the justice system sector players insofar as speedy resolution of these cases are concerned. Otherwise, forming an ad hoc committee or declaring a national disaster, I think that is just cosmetic. There's nothing that will go further into that apart from just doing that for purposes of public image. The leaders ought to amplify this more. I've not heard the First Lady talk about this. I don't know what she's talking about. I've not heard the president talk about it. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just saying Ruto's warning shot to restless Mount Kenya leaders or secrets about Ruto and Mudavadi. I don't know what they're talking about. And if this country, if the leaders wanted to talk about something, you'd see them in Bomas talk about it. You'd see them in the studios talking about it. You'd see them in funerals or every Sunday talking about it. But they're not doing it. And if we are talking about starting from the family system, Kenya being a family, our parents are the president and the deputy president. Those are our parents, and so it ought to begin from them. And if this voice is amplified to that level, then everything is going to cascade down easily. But any other conversation I think we are going to have around national disaster or around ad hoc committees or around, I don't know, empowerment or tackling. I saw the president made the Chief Justice. That ought to have been part of what they talked about, and say we are losing a lot of young people. And most of these people who are dying are 18 to 30. We're losing a lot of young people. And if you're losing a lot of young people, they need to be a point of intervention into preventing these reckless murders that are happening. But then at the end of the day, I think we cannot legislate over cruelty. And that's what I began by saying. You cannot sit and say, this is a law that we need to stop men from being cruel. Even in divorce cases, we say that is one of the grounds of divorce. But when you're coming to justify that there was cruelty in marriage, it's always just a very touchy area, because he said, she said, or he did, she did. It's always like that. So we cannot legislate about cruelty. But men and boys and women, we need to be careful about each other. You see, a woman is so easily groped at the stage by the conductors, and they touch them so as if their bodily integrity does not matter. And that's how it starts. It starts from that point. Yes. Men are never done like that. But a conductor will run and touch a woman as if they don't matter. And it begins from that point of looking at women not as properties, but as human beings, and also treating men not as properties, but as human beings. I'm sure you're going to be happy.
Yes.
Because I have squeezed that part of it. Thank you so much.
To me, that is how unfair society is to boys and men.
Guess what? We're
That confirms
Guess what? We're laughing about it, but it's a big issue. If those numbers that Collins is presenting to you this morning, that 152, by the way, when we say 152 recorded, meaning there is more. There's always the chance that they're way higher. This week we've spoken about it. Guess what? We rest this particular case. Rosemary Collins, Melissa, thank you very much for being a part and parcel of this particular conversation. Take them back online to the time that they came online. I've been told there's been so many comments that have come in, but guess what? I don't have time to do that. We gotta step out. I'll see you tomorrow for another conversation right here at Lookuptv. Remember, we're looking forward to that ruling this week on a housing levy. Which way is it gonna go? Especially on the back of that meeting with the CJ. We'll be live. Probably call Collins so they can explain. Goodbye.